Oh, got to turn it. With item 4, consent agenda. And
not the other side. I can't hear very well. The masks don't help.
okay, item 4, a motion is in order to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion or item a board member wants to remove for individual consideration? At this time, any item on the consent agenda can be removed for individual consideration at the request of any board member. So going once, going twice, hearing none. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Moving on, student representation. Would that be Jamie?
Yep. That would be. And just for future, our student representative will be making videos to share at the board meeting for you guys so that you guys can kind of have that connection to the student population. So that will be starting November 16th. Okay. So on the high school level, on Tuesday, October 20th, MHS students participated in a mental health awareness lesson and were taught how to handle the signs and risks associated with mental health and how to appropriately address mental health disorders. MHS is starting a girls lacrosse team for the spring, and they are currently looking for people to sign up. On Wednesday, November 11th, MHS is planning for post-secondary options for junior students and their guardians to learn about the post-high school planning process. Muskego is also offering a resume workshop for students to learn about how to create and modify your resume. On Monday, October 19th, Muskego held a blood drive in the MHS PAC lobby from 3 to 7 p.m. Muskego Student Council is holding the Spooktacular event on October 31st from 10:15 to 11:30 for elementary school students to come and dress up in costumes outside around the football field, and the kids will receive pre-packaged treats. Masks are required, and guests will be asked to follow the social distance guidelines. On the middle school level at Lake Danoon, a message from the school. This week we celebrated Unity Day by wearing orange. Unity Day is all about sending the supportive message that bullying is never acceptable behavior. This is a time where we join together against bullying and unite for kindness, acceptance, and inclusion. During our morning message, we reinforced this message and also shared how bullying impacts the person being bullied, the witnesses to the bullying, and even the bully himself or herself. Similar messages have been shared throughout the month in the daily student announcements. At Muskego Lakes, messages from their school. Muskego Lakes had a successful cross-country season. Over 20 clubs are starting up, including some virtual options, with some new clubs, i.e. Dungeons and Dragons Club, Geography Bee Club, and Yoga Club. Our students in the Generation Club continue to build relationships with Tudor Oaks and recently made mask holders for residents there, along with Halloween bags for them with goodies. We have intramurals started over lunch, which is new this year. Elementary at Bay Lane, virtual coffee with the Bay Lane principals was on Friday, October 23rd, which was held to address questions and concerns from families. On October 21st, Bay Lane wore orange to celebrate Unity Day and bring awareness to Bullying Prevention Month. November 5th is Picture Retake Day. Bay Lane is having a PTO Spirit Week. Monday, Pajama Day. Tuesday, Black Red Spirit Day. Wednesday, Rainbow Day. Thursday, Team Spirit Day. And Friday, Costume Day. Bay Lane also held a pumpkin carving painting contest where students were able to submit a photo of their decorated pumpkins to win different prizes or gift cards. Bay Lane is also holding an online book fair from October 26th to November 6th. At Lakeview, they also celebrated Unity Day by dressing up in orange to raise awareness on bullying prevention. And for Mill Valley, from the school, for 10 weeks, October through December, all elementary students will be participating in mindfulness lessons. Through these lessons, students will learn how to enhance focusing skills, manage emotions, and support conflict resolution. At Mill Valley, each month, Golden Awards are announced. Golden Awards are given to classrooms for positive behavior seen in areas of our schools such as specials, cleanliness, bus behavior, following recess expectations, lunchroom, etc. Classrooms are honored with a Golden Award to display their classroom. If you have any questions or want to include anything different, please feel free to contact Laura at the email provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
It's nice to see so much mindfulness and mental health issues and stuff for the bullying things.
Laura's doing a very good job
Yeah.
on getting that report done. So certainly appreciate you recognizing that. And I know you've been helpful too in trying to ensure that. Yeah, so thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 6, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Thompson.
Okay, the first item is the tennis singles champion. Actually, we're going to defer this to November, given that the entire tennis team are state champs. So this weekend, they won that, which is fantastic, first time in school history. So we look forward to seeing them on November 16th. And that gets us to the high school report to the board. So turn it over to Todd.
Good evening, everyone. President Buckmaster.
Thank you,
Also
Mr.
this weekend, we were excited to also have regional champions in boys soccer, and our girls cross-country team also three-peat for sectional champions and qualified to move on to defend their state title coming up this next weekend. Girls volleyball was also regional champions, and our girls swim team continues to do amazing things. They've got their tournament series coming up this week. So lots of exciting stuff happening. Also, perhaps you got a chance to see our first ever virtual choir concert. Anyone get a chance to see that link?
I did. It was very good.
Our students are incredible, and it's so cool to see opportunities being created to try to keep them connected to the things they're passionate about. And hopefully that message will kind of shine through in the things we talk about tonight. So I was given some great advice by past President Mr. Petfalski that I have a very short timeline, and the more succinct and brief I am with this, likely the more positive it will feel at 9:30 on a Monday evening. So moving to our first slide here. How often do we see this wonderful image of invalid data, no data to be found, and we cringe as we look at our laptop? This is a crazy concept, but I can't tell you guys how frustrated our staff was last spring when the Aspire test was canceled. And to hear a high school staff speak out of frustration that a standardized test was canceled is not the norm. Our staff has bought in so hard and understands in so many different ways the power of these tests, and the SLOs and the work they've created and how they utilize that data as a kind of a litmus test of the work that they've done. We had some great things happening last school year, and we're excited about that, but we missed out on one of the measuring tools that kind of helps celebrate us. The State Scorecard is one of those things where, again, sometimes school districts talk about the dance around that, how to play the game, if you will. I stand proudly here today telling you that our staff believes in the importance of this. They view it as a reflection of our community, and our previous scorecard, we just missed significantly exceeds by 2 points, and it was a huge point of contention with our staff. The frustration, the belief that we are a school district that significantly exceeds in every way. We want our community stakeholders to understand how important that is to us. We were confident at the data trends we were seeing within our SLOs and really believe we would have had a great jump this past year had we had the opportunity. That work isn't lost, though. It's going to continue on throughout this next year. And honestly, they continue to get better at it. Our work around SOAPs and many of the different other strategies that are helping us understand, here's what we're teaching, here's how we're assessing it, what's happening to the students who haven't quite mastered it yet, how are we extending the learning for those students who are absolutely crushing it, and how do we keep the whole system moving forward. So some of the places that showed up, and I apologize, this is a new keyboard for me to work with. They usually don't let me use these. ACT celebrations. Again, I feel like oftentimes, oh my goodness, Janice, Jamie, what are you doing to me here? This is childproof.
I have no control.
Okay, I don't believe you. I think you're doing this behind the scenes. When we talk about the ACT, sometimes folks feel like that's all we talk about, and students are far more than a test score. I absolutely believe that's true. Our students are far more than what that one test measures, but the reality is that test has a huge impact on their future. It can open doors, it can change a child's perception about their ability to pursue opportunities for life after high school. One of the things I love about this system is we don't say kids have to go to college, but we say we want every kid to have that choice. We want them to be empowered with the ability to believe that if they want to go there, we've given them the skills and the tools to access that learning. So that test does have a huge impact. That test can be a number that opens doors. That test can mean scholarships, financial aid. So we want to make sure we're embracing that. We are now in our third year of a statistically significant increase in our average composite for our juniors. Goodness gracious. Last year, our junior all-school composite was 22.1. We're very privileged to be able to work with an expert in our state around data. The conversations we had this summer around that work, he was excited beyond our excitement to say that the school districts that he's working with, high schools are not going in this direction. The things that we're doing are working and people are asking questions. What I will tell you is what's working is our staff genuinely believes in our kids. Our staff genuinely cares about our kids' success, and they want to empower our students to have those opportunities for life after high school. Their efforts around SOAPs, those standards of focus, where in the past we've struggled with, there's a lot of different targets to hit. When we're teaching to AP standards, national science standards, and all these different things. How do you pull out those right skills that tie in all those targets so you don't feel like you're teaching to 4 different targets? You're reinforcing a skill that spirals through all of these different things. And then once you've taught that skill, how do you effectively assess it and keep coming back around that? And how do you support students when they don't know that? So now we're actually going to, oh boy, here we go. Now I made it small enough that I can't read even with my glasses. Apologize. So looking at the benchmark scores, so not only did our composite score go up, that is a great thing. In the past, we've always focused on math and reading, which are essential skills. But there's more than just math and science, or excuse me, math and reading in our school. So we were excited to have our science team really buy in, some of our elective teams buy in, and understand how every one of our departments working towards this common goal, that collective effort towards this is where we're going to move the needle the most. So the college readiness benchmarks are in those 4 areas: math, science, reading, and English. Last year, we had a very significant increase in the number of students that actually met all 4 of those. We actually bumped up 4 points, which may not seem that significant, but when you look at the state of Wisconsin, across the state, out of all juniors, only 23% of the students in our state meet all 4 college readiness benchmarks. So that is really huge, thinking about in our building, 36% of our students obtained college readiness benchmarks in all 4 areas. And what that means, their score predicts with 50% confidence that they are ready to perform at a B level in college. So when we talk about preparing our students to be college ready, that's the benchmark we want to hit. A few other areas of focus. Again, our mission is one that we believe in immensely. It's all students. We aren't here just to serve some students or the students who want to go to a 4-year college. Again, we believe it's our responsibility to prepare every student to have that choice and to feel like they are confidently prepared to go off and access whatever opportunities they want. 2 of our populations that we focused on last year within our SLOs were some populations that traditionally or historically schools across America have seen an under or a lower performance in those areas. Ours are students who receive socioeconomic support and students who are identified with an IEP. Specifically in those populations, we had several staff members write SLOs or specific student learning objectives around those targeted populations, and we were extremely proud and excited at some of the results that we saw. Our English team is an area where we have team-taught classes. Their efforts to really intentionally design supports throughout that led to just some outstanding growth in those specific skills. So you can see up in the top, our students from low SES backgrounds and also students identified with an IEP had amazing growth in those areas. One of the things we continue to work on is, so once you've identified something that works, how do you replicate that in other areas? So what our English 9 and our English 10 teams were doing in those specific skills, how do they help ensure that some of our other areas that really focus on reading as well have some of those same strategies? So social studies, for example, is very much a reading-based curriculum. If you can read all the materials and primary source documents and take out the key information and details, you're better prepared to be successful in a social studies class. Science is a ton of reading. All of these different courses have some themed skills, and our staff is coming together to talk about those skills. Oh boy. I apologize if I'm making you motion sick. All right, so this is our parent engagement survey. We had a solid increase last year from a 4.0 to a 4.10. That was also a major area of focus for us. We believe immensely that school is a partnership with the community, and it truly takes a strong partnership if you're going to meet the needs of every student. So we have a lot of intentional activities that we continue to expand upon, whether it be Veterans Day celebrations, bringing in things for our students to understand what it means to be a warrior, bringing in family and alumni who have gone off and served our country. Things like the Warrior Winterizer, where we bring in all sorts of local businesses. We kind of contribute to the experience that our students understand that it's more than just showing up on a Friday night to play a game of basketball in the gym. Our family and our community wants to be here and celebrate with us, and our community takes a ton of pride in what happens within our schools. Those kind of partnerships are just continuing to grow. Things like movies out on Impro Field. We continue to try to expand on that. We're certainly in a little bit of a different space right now, but we look forward to, again, building on that momentum as we work through this time and we're able to open up our doors a bit more. Our student engagement is the next slide. That's not really a slide, but student engagement continues to increase. Again, really excited about this trend. I will tell you, I believe firmly that learning is a social process. Students need to feel safe, they need to feel respected, they need to feel connected. If we hope to open up their minds, you have to first open up their hearts and make sure that they feel like this is a safe place for them to be a part of. We continue to have a lot of intentional actions to help their voices be heard within our school. Things like our principals cabinet, which is a representative population of all of our different clubs, and then also the Athletic Leadership Council. Those are the two images below. And then also our Warriors 101. These are just different programs that are student-led that help our students, our incoming freshmen, for example, in Warriors 101. That's led by upperclassmen who volunteer their time to help our freshmen understand what it means to be a warrior. They give them tours throughout the building. They help them understand what are common questions that you have as you start out at the high school level. Their leadership and mentoring continues beyond just that first day. They have different follow-up sessions and opportunities to help those incoming freshmen feel welcomed. The next slide, again, just reiterates that notion that our goal is to make sure every single student here has something that they feel connects to their heart. So oftentimes we hear, well, it's just about sports, or it's just about band, or it's just about choir. You heard mentioned that we're starting a lacrosse team. We're going to continue to explore avenues and opportunities to make sure every kid here has something that they're passionate about, that they're able to expand upon their skills, and that they can be celebrated just as much. If you win a state championship in football, it's no more or less exciting than when we win a state championship in girls tennis. Helping every student understand that their individual success is what makes this place a special place to be a part of. And then our final slide is highly effective personnel. Again, I just can't stress enough how all of this is possible because we have an amazing staff who absolutely loves what they do and believes in the importance of the opportunity they have every single day when they show up here. As goofy as it sounds, I love that photo, not just because I look good in gold pants, Mr. Buckmaster, but because it exemplifies a group of people that are willing to laugh and to be vulnerable in front of our students. High school age is a difficult time. These kids struggle with self-identity, self-confidence, and all these different things. And when as adults we can come together and be silly and show them that sometimes it's okay to be a goofball, but then you can also flip that switch and be an intellectual. You can be a dancer, you can be a tennis player, you can sing, you can be a scientist, a mathematician. Each and every one of them has a unique set of skills, and we want to help them find the confidence to be the best version of themselves that they can be. So really proud to work with a group of people who so genuinely believes in their mission and who walks into this building every single day fully committed to giving their best to our kids. So that's a quick summary of last year. Looking ahead to this year, our commitment continues to be living our mission. That notion that every single student who walks through our doors deserves our best. And our goal is to make sure every kid who walks across that stage in 4 years has the tools and the skills that they need to be community, college, and career ready. We have a great tradition of our students living in our community after they've gone off to college and coming back and wanting to raise their families here. We are doing our community a favor by preparing our kids in the best way we can to be the best citizens if they choose to return to continue to be outstanding citizens of our community. Our academic goals are really continuing on that same path. We understand our ACT isn't where we want it to be, and we're going to continue to push the envelope so that empowers more and more of our students to believe that they can, if they choose, access amazing post-secondary opportunities. For that to happen, we have to continue to make sure we're focused on engagement. This is a difficult stretch for countless reasons. It's fascinating. When I even look around this room trying to have this conversation with masks on and the inability to have smiles, one of the things I love most about my job is the opportunity to walk out in a hallway and see 1,500 smiles in about a 5-minute time span. It's hard to connect with one another right now. Our kids aren't built for this. They're not made to sit 6 feet away from one another and try to have a conversation with masks on. We have to be very intentional to make sure our kids feel connected and feel supported. So sometimes it's something as simple as continuing traditions like homecoming week, giving them some sense of normalcy, allowing them to have a voice in what we're doing and feel connected to what makes this high school a great place. And that's being a part of the Warrior community. And continuing different traditions that are important, things like our Sparkle cheer team, helping our students take on leadership roles to support one another, to find their voice, to be an advocate, to make a difference in our world. When some of our most gifted, talented students dedicate time to serving others, we're reinforcing skills that we believe are going to help them be the best citizens they can be, hopefully the best neighbors they can be one day down the road. So our specific actions this year are really centered around how, within the parameters that we have, can we continue to do things that meaningfully keep our kids engaged with our school culture. So again, things like athletic leadership athletic leadership council and principals cabinet. Yes, they're going to look a little bit different, but they're still going to be there, and they might be virtual, but we're still going to get their voices at the table. We're going to help them, or try to have them help us create a culture that they feel connected to. And it doesn't just stop with our students. We need to continue to build on those opportunities that we offer as a school system. Again, we're great at the math, science, English, social studies, and yet we do have portions of our population that aren't necessarily as interested in that. They might like math when it's connected to building trades. So how do we keep offering career opportunities and educational opportunities that help them reinforce those right core curriculum areas, but in an area where they find it is relevant? Mr. Johnson gave a great summary about some of the building and long-term plans for the district. I just can't stress enough how the conversations around science, technology, engineering are so relevant to our kids. They're so relevant to the career opportunities that exist out there. And we've got some great ideas and some great options brewing with our Connect Academy. And we are just a little bit landlocked right now with our facilities. To be honest, we're a bit outdated with some of the technologies that our students are exposed to. And we are excited to continue the conversation to say, how can we get facilities that help our students access some of these amazing career opportunities that exist out there? And then final slide, and I went over my 10 minutes. Sorry, Rick. It is about community partnership. One of the things that has amazed me since the time I started here are the number of families and alumni who continue to show up. It just floored me when I met a gentleman who was a 1959 graduate. 2 years before the 60th reunion, he came to one of our sporting events because he wanted to talk about his journey at Muskego High School. The pride that he took. We took a picture together, and it just still makes me smile. He was so excited to tell me about his experience as a wrestler, as a football player. And every time there's a home football game or a basketball game, I get to run into these parents and these alumni who share their stories from 30 years ago. A high school and a school system is the center of a community. We have to continue to embrace that. Yes, things need to look different right now, and we are doing everything we can to stay safe, to stay open, because our kids do better when they're here. And we're excited to get back to a time when we continue to welcome our community in, to celebrate our alumni, to continue to model for our students that you are not just a warrior in the 4 years that you're here. Once you've been a part of our system, we want you to remain a warrior. Once you graduate, you will always be valued and cared for here. So thank you guys for your support. I can't stress enough how proud I am to be a part of the system, The things that you do to battle and advocate for us as a school system make this a place that our staff want to be a part of and that we want to be a part of as administrators. So thank you. Questions?
You, Ted.
I'll just make one comment real quick. I noticed just about every one of the data points that you pointed out, slow and steady increase, which is great. That's what we want to see is the building up, because we know big jumps aren't really that effective because it's such a usual one-time thing. So slow and steady, we'll get there. We're getting there. And I mean, we're already a great high school. We can get even better. Thank you.
Todd, I'm just curious if you can give me 2 examples of what you're doing with the staff to just keep them not having COVID crisis overload, and how they're kind of dealing, because I see your engagement survey dip a little bit, and I'm just worried this year it's going to dip even more just because of the virtual and in-person, and
Love that.
there's COVID fatigue going on, and I'm just curious, like, give me 2 examples what you're doing with the staff just to keep them.
Thank you for asking that question. It honestly matters when they know how much folks care about them and what they're doing. And that dip as well is a fascinating one, because honestly, that one bothered me immensely last year, and had a great conversation with Mr. Peterson, who's great about continuous improvement. We are still in the 95th percentile of high schools across the nation, but that one frustrates me because that is so important. When our staff knows they're cared about and valued and supported, it helps them give their best. So the question is very much in the right spot. So our lowest area last year was principal makes effective and efficient use of time, which here's a perfect example. I love to talk and I love to share good stories. So we took that feedback and we talked about, so when we get together at faculty meetings and we get together on professional development days, I love to start out with the celebrating the awesome, because we need to be reminded of what's working well. Yes, there's all of these different things, but I'm a little bit more intentional with how much time I dedicate to that. The other really cool thing about that survey is our highest score was staff's belief that the principal and administrative team genuinely care about them. So we are very intentional with, we call it rounding and informal rounding. We as an administrative team divide up every single week, every staff member in our building is connected with. So basically we have a schedule where we divide and conquer, whether it's before school or after school. We check in with our staff to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of who's really had a rough day, who had a difficult conversation with a student or a parent or something that just kind of is weighing heavily on their heart. They are not insulated to their own family crises, or they may have their own kids quarantined and they're struggling with how to manage all of that. So we continue to be very intentional to check in and then do whatever we can to support. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, how is it going with 60 kids being quarantined right now?
You know what? Honestly, it's going well. It sounds hard to say that because anytime a student is not here, it's not good. But the fact that we are still moving forward, the live streaming has done a fairly effective job at keeping kids connected and engaged, but it's manageable. Yes, it's a challenge. We have amazing families who want to partner with us, but I don't want to minimize the stress that that creates on a family, on students, or on the staff. Everyone's working really hard because when that kid is gone, I'll use the assessment question. It is difficult to create a very valid assessment with great questions that really get to the root of whether or not a student does or doesn't know this skill, and all that stuff we talked about before of cycles of inquiry and all of that. If you take that great assessment question and you now unleash it digitally into the free world, that question is probably not going to be valid because roughly 500 other students are going to have it by the end of the day. So you can do certain things face-to-face with paper and pencil that kind of manage the fidelity question, and yet how do you continue to assess a student who's home digitally and can access a cell phone or a peer or something like that? So they're having to be creative, and creating great assessments is really a skill. So there isn't an easy answer other than they're working incredibly hard to try to do that. And sometimes we're working with the family to say, okay, you're out for the next 8 days. Please don't stress about that. We'll set something up when you return. We'll get you some review time. But then sometimes that creates different stressors. They're the right questions, and we're going to continue to work on it. And I would tell you almost with each student that's quarantined, we learn something different. Their feedback is extremely important. Families have been great about sharing their feedback. What was it like on the parent end? And we're trying to respond to that as we get it.
Anything else?
Well, thank you, Todd. You are an awesome leader here at the high school and an awesome contributor to our district level administration and leadership team. So you are fabulous. We are so grateful that you are with us today and always. So thanks so much. Appreciate
Proud to
it.
be here and I'll work on my mouse skills. Jamie,
Thank you, Mr. Irvine.
thank you guys so much.
All right, the next item is Act 185 DPI report. Julie?
So DPI is, it's being requested of them that they provide a picture to the legislative group on the impact that the pandemic has had on school districts in general. And so they're required to report out by January 1st, which means we have to report to them by November 1st, which is coming up this week. And so I downloaded a copy of the survey, and all of the leadership team put in the responses, so you were able to see how we're going to respond and the impact that the pandemic has had on us as a system. Again, there is a link to it in there, and there are some questions about the impact that they asked on this current year, so we put in what we know to date. There could be obviously some adjustments if things change in the future, but this is everything that we are able to report on to date. That's more of an FYI for you.
All right, the next item is our pulse survey. Jeffrey.
All right, Jamie, we're going to pull it up so that we have some proficiency here. So surveying our parents is not new to our system. We've been doing it for quite a few years now. But what is new this year is pulsing our parents around a set number of questions. And we decided to do that this year for several reasons. One, because we wanted to find out the level of parent satisfaction relative to certain things that we put in place due to COVID, as well as really putting these 6 questions out there several times throughout the year so that we can have a better idea on how we're doing throughout the year and take meaningful action. So that's the purpose of our pulse survey. And we recently pulsed our parents in October. And more specifically, it was around in-person virtual learning opportunities, as well as family access to technology and internet service. So we're happy to say that we had a 56% response rate, which represented 1,621 total responses. So in comparison to other surveys, we are right in the ballpark with what we typically get on an annual basis for our parent survey. We had roughly 200 plus responses per grade level, and you'll see that in the slides to come. But before we dive into the slides, just wanted to make you aware of a couple things. One, any of the results that you see are going to be on a 5-point scale, which is very similar to the scale that we use with our other stakeholder surveys, our employee engagement, our student satisfaction, and then also our parent satisfaction surveys. There are 6 questions that we embedded into this survey, and they will also be part of the full parent satisfaction survey, so that we can see how have we done from this point in time in the year to December, January, when we ask those questions again. We thought it was important for you to know that our entire leadership team had an opportunity to review the results through a data visualization tool called Qualtrics. Last week, we spent about an hour and a half to 2 hours looking at the survey results, disaggregating them by school, by grade level, and then ultimately taking some next step action steps aligned to the results. And then lastly, the technology internet questions that you'll see in here were completed in support of sharing some information that DPI was seeking. So Jamie, you are in our results. And why don't we take a look at that very first slide, which is that bar graph. Yep, right there. So just, again, want to reiterate, 56% response rate, which we felt was pretty strong. And you can see those bars across the top. We had fairly even representation from each one of our respective grade levels across our system. 125 responses from 4K, but understand that we only have 209 4K families, so that was pretty strong representation from our 4K families. In the next slide, there are three visuals there from left to right. The 4.2 overall average is actually the average in our system for the 6 questions altogether. So 4.2 on a 5-point scale. And then what we did is we disaggregated. We disaggregated the data. We wanted to know how satisfied are our parents relative to these 6 questions that have in-person learners and then also virtual learners. So you can see the difference between in-person, which is a 4.3 on a 5-point scale, and then our virtual families had rated their level of satisfaction as a 3.6. We thought it was important also for the board to be able to see each one of the 6 questions that were on the survey separately and how they responded. So again, from left to right, I believe that my child's school is handling the COVID-19 challenge to keep people safe, 4.5. We thought that that was a strong vote of confidence in the work that we did to prepare our system, as well as the work that's continuing to happen in our system related to COVID-19. The next one, the 3.9, I regularly receive feedback from school from staff on how well my child is learning. That is an area that we continue to seek growth and opportunities to improve in. Annually on the survey, that is one of our lowest areas of satisfaction, and we wanted to see how are we doing relative to this particular question, especially in a COVID year. Are we doing better? Are we faring better? Or are we not faring as well as what we typically do? And actually, it's very close to how parents responded the last 4 or 5 years relative to that question. And then on the right side, you'll see I believe that the school is focused on the social emotional well-being of my child, 4.2. We had committed resources and some adult learning to better be able to support the social emotional side of students, understanding that it was quite a few months before they actually stepped foot back into our schools. So that was an area that we wanted to address. The next slide, Jamie. My child has access to resources and information needed to support his or her learning, a 4.4. I have access to my child's teacher when needed, a 4.5. And then the very last question that we asked, I would recommend this school to other parents, which is a 4.6. This question annually continues to come up on our parent satisfaction survey. On the very next slide, we wanted to provide an overview for you on what that looked like since 2016-17, the last 5 years, and then what it looked like in March of 2020 when we closed schools down, which is a 4.48. And then this year in October, our parents responded at a 4.6. So that tells us quite a bit about the level of confidence that the parents have in our response not only to COVID, but also how they're feeling about the work of our respective district. That is a huge celebration for us that we continue to see year after year an increase on parents wanting to recommend our schools and our system. The very next slide, I won't spend a lot of detail in. Again, this was technology access and device access questions that we had asked our parents to respond to. Again, this data was shared with DPI, it was part of the requirement, and Tony Spence had helped build that out in our survey. And then most importantly, data is only as good as what we're going to use it. We can look at it and ask all kinds of questions and say we're really happy with X, Y, or Z, but that really doesn't do us any good unless we put action to what we're seeing. So key takeaways for us with this particular survey, we thought that there was strong representation and response rate. We want to continue to see that because parents are a strong partner and have a voice on what they would like to see happening with their students in our schools. Overall, we felt like there was a very positive vibe, not only in the quantitative, which you saw the numbers, but also the comments. There was a theme of thank you for staying, for opening our schools, and thank you for the efforts to keep our schools open. Overwhelmingly, very, very positive. We also noticed that our in-person satisfaction is greater than the virtual, which you saw in the numbers. So virtual is a growth opportunity. Our principals dove deep into that last week, as I said, and they are coming up with action plans and ideas as far as how we can address some of the virtual opportunities. Regular received feedback is also a growth opportunity. Mentioned that. That's part of our action steps in our eye and the goal plans. Each building has something to do with increasing the level of satisfaction in that area. And lastly, as I said, this data is only as good as what we do with adjusting our action steps in our eye and the goal plan. So just pleased that we were able to spend an hour and a half to 2 hours last week to dive into it, but also make adjustments to our actions. That being said, any questions?
So the next time we'll be surveying parents will be in about a month and a half?
Correct.
And then we'll do another pulse. That'll be the normal parent survey, and then we'll be pulsing again in
Month and a half to 2 months after that. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jeff.
I was going to say, I talked to you about this beforehand. I was just bummed it was, the period of time to take it was so short. It wasn't 2 weeks, it was just, I just never got around to it. So I was kind of, I don't know. I mean,
We did purposely have the pulses calendared shorter as a month, because otherwise they run into each other, you know, pulsing so often, we would know when that ends. So we wanted to be quick with it and know that we're not going to get everybody, right? But knowing that we'll have another time in a month and a half, and then another time a couple months later. So if you didn't do it now, you'll have plenty of time to give us feedback in the future. So we just don't want to run them too close together.
True to its name, pulse.
Pulse, yep.
And I do feel like virtual it's a work in progress. It just is. I mean, I even seen it with my own teaching that, you know, in the spring when we were lumped into it, we're like, oh, I don't know what to do. And summer got a little bit better, and now I feel like, you know, you're kind of grasping the concept of it and how it works and stuff. So I do feel like that's a gradual thing over time that should get better. That would be too concerned about it.
Yep. Thank you. And we have highly committed staff to see it successful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Jeff?
Joseph, did you have your hand up? Okay.
All right. And the last item for the superintendent report is the contributions to the profession. And thank you, Julie, for representing Muskego Norway in the WASBO Fall Conference. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Moving on to item 7, other reports. President's report. No, since I had a lengthy one during the annual meeting, I'll spare you my other comments here. Other board member reports. Mr. Hyde.
No report.
Mrs. Blair.
I actually was contacted by the executive director of CISA 1, Mary Hogan, and she was fascinated that we share. Like, I guess she wasn't aware that other boards may be sharing the detailed information from their organization. So she was elated that she could put something together for us and that I could present it, you know. So that'll be coming in November. But she called me personally at home and was just like, I never realized that we touched this, you know. So that was kind of cool to hear and stuff. So.
Well, thank you for that.
So that'll be fun.
Absolutely. You're good then with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Cassandra?
No, okay.
Mrs. Blair? Mr. Bowman? Mr. Boschert? No? All right, we have no committee reports as no committees have met. Moving on to item 8, resolution action items. Item A, 2020-21 budget.
Motion to approve the 2020-21 budget as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? You have before you the budget, just went through it, as presented during the annual meeting. All three formats from the tax levy along with the general fund budget. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item B, 2020-21 tax levy.
Motion to approve 2020-21 tax levy as presented.
So moved.
Any discussion? You have before you the actual tax levy as presented at the annual meeting and approved. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item C, Curriculum Planning Committee approvals.
Motion to approve CPC recommended courses as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. You have before you the items that were discussed at our last board meeting by the CPC and were moved forward. Any final or last minute discussion on those? Nope, hearing none. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item D, baseball and softball field lighting project.
Motion to approve the baseball and softball lighting projects as presented below.
So moved.
Mr. Boschert? Discussion. Jeremiah?
Just a little background from the last time we talked. Learned a little bit about our lighting system and our situation and the installation process. So currently on our baseball diamond, we have 10 stubbed in Musco ready stubs. So essentially the only thing that can go into those is Musco lighting. So in looking to get bids for that, the only Musco could bid on that unless we remounted brand new footings and ran all new electric. The panels are also Musco, which come into the building where they turn on. So someone would really have to redo a lot of this infrastructure that's currently there if we were to go with anybody else. I did ask them if we had our own electrician complete the work, would there be a deduct, and it would be approximately $9,600. I sought somebody that we use for electrical work, and they bid the installation process at $38,000, so it wouldn't make sense to do that. Softball, which has nothing stubbed in or no electrical run to it, was a little bit of a different story, so I wanted to make sure we got the full gamut of options. So Musco's bid was $145,000 for their system to be installed, fully turnkey. They would provide the product and install it. We got a bid from Wisconsin Lighting to provide us the materials only. Should be noted that they also do installation, but they did not want to drive here from Fond du Lac to do the installation. The product only was $69,000, and Pace Electric bid $49,800 to install their product. Also, just for giggles, we asked Pace if they would install Musco's product on that field, and it would be $43,000. I guess Musco's product comes a little bit more assembled than Wisconsin's lighting lamp does. So in total, as far as the funding mechanism for softball, it would be cheaper to put the two products together. However, in investigating lighting quality and processes and everything regarding lighting, Musco is a far superior product. So I actually interviewed an electrician that we work with that has nothing to do with this bid process, and he touted Musco as one of the best performing products for lighting that there is. They do a lot in their direction to make sure that you don't get light pollution spilling over into yards. They have a digital system that you can turn the system on from your phone from home. in case you need to shut them off at night. It's not uncommon for our staff to get called in the middle of the night because a sporting group inadvertently left the lights on, which is something we have to work on. But just to be able to turn it off from home avoids that run-in. We can also schedule times for it to be on and off as well. So with the Wisconsin lighting system, it's an old pole on-off system. So even though there's a bit of a discrepancy, our recommendation would be to go with Musco lighting for the superior product we'd be getting. Just to reiterate what we talked about the last meeting, the city has brought forward the opportunity where they would donate $230,000 to install lights on the baseball diamond. This would alleviate some of the club sports that are taxing their fields and would open up the opportunity for them to rent from us purely as renters. We do offer pretty good rates just to rent our fields as compared to some of the other fields. So we talked through that with the city, and they seemed open to it, and they've been talking with the clubs, and they seemed excited about it. But the caveat is we should also install lighting on softball if we're going to do baseball because of Title IX concerns. So we would want to create equity between the girls and boys programs. If we were to do something on baseball without doing something on softball, that would open us up to potential litigation or issues because we're making improvements to one but not the other. So for us, the opportunity to have a donation this sizable and finish out a project that was started almost 20 years ago is kind of interesting. We probably only have 15 games on our baseball field, which is an award-winning, well-kept field. Much like our football field for a while where we could only do 4 games on it a year. It would just open up the opportunity to really use it and open up that complex for more community use and for our own teams in spring when it's darker earlier to be able to run practices later or night games or shift things around just opens up a whole different opportunity. So, questions?
Any discussion?
I have one. Oh, go ahead.
I did have a question around what's kind of, I guess, in the city. I talked to the mayor about this previously, but I thought we need to be good to get that kind of on record as to what it is.
Absolutely. Mr. Mayor, would you care to join our conversation?
I'd love to.
Thank you, Joseph.
I'll wait through this maze.
And then
Plexiglass maze thing.
Are you not used to that? Okay.
if you want to answer this question too while you're out there, do you have to get the approval of people who live around that area to have the lights on for a specific time period and stuff like that? I would think it would be rather bright.
So to answer your question quite simply, yes, it will have to go through Plan Commission for a BSO amendment. I don't see that being an issue. And I look at the history because the baseball field was stubbed in, so it might have been part of the original BSO for that whole athletic complex when it went in. But
I'm just thinking about the softball.
Yeah, the softball more than the softball for sure. I'm not sure about the baseball, but more than likely we would just put them both through anyway. So there would be hours of restrictions of use, more than likely of 2 a.m. things like that. You're not going to be able to have baseball games, but I don't see that being a big roadblock. To answer Mr. Bouchart's question, what's in it for the city? I guess backing up the term donation scares me. So I look at it as an investment. Originally the city had approved, prior to my administration, of redoing Park Arthur, the big ball diamond at Park Arthur, which I believe is Park Arthur number 4, the one right at the bottom of the sledding hill, at a cost of around $350,000. That field is usable as long as it doesn't rain. If it rains, the access to that field is, depending on how hard it rains, could be up to a week. It drains very, very poorly. The field wasn't designed as well as it should have been and definitely wasn't constructed, which actually goes for all the baseball fields at Park Arthur. They're all in the process of either being rebuilt or finding alternatives for it. So my thought was, because my history with the school district and knowing the use of that field, also having a son that went through the baseball program from 3 years old on through 18 years old, the goal of every baseball player in the community, I shouldn't say every, but most baseball players in the community, the youth ones, is to someday play on that high school field as a Warrior. So the sooner you can get them there, the better. getting lights on that field, I know would be a longer road if it was left for the school district to do alone. So I viewed it as a win-win situation where the city taxpayers would be paying about $100,000 less for this investment and providing the same access that they would have at Park Arthur, and actually saves the baseball clubs a little bit of money because their field prep costs at Park Arthur are quite a bit higher than what the district would be paying for at least estimating what they'd be paying for their prep costs here. So I presented it to my council. The common council's one of their goals when I met with them when I got in office after April was to try to mend some of the relationships with the school district, and I think this is one of the first things of many things that we can do. And actually, if the history of that site, those athletic fields were co-developed between the city and the school district back in 2004. So it's really just kind of finishing up some undone business and moving forward with a new lease on our viewpoint. So, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Any other questions?
Jeremiah, would the portion then under your proposal going with Musco for both?
Correct.
What would our portion of it be then?
If the city came through with the $230,000, we would fund $145,000.
So it would be just a 145. And what budget is that coming out of?
That would come out of our capital budget, so we actually have budgeted $750,000, which was approved today. We still have $150,000 remaining in there, so we'll be able to cover it.
Thank you.
Any other?
Oh, sorry, is
Go
4
ahead.
poles enough for that field, being that the baseball diamond has 10?
Yeah, and with Musco doing what they do, I think they would make sure that it would be 100% accurate with their estimations, so both companies did the same way.
Any other discussion? No? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, item E, Neola policy revisions.
Motion to approve the policy revisions as presented.
Mr. Hyde?
So moved.
Discussion. So this is the second time that these policy revisions come before us. Any specific questions, please contact staff unless you have something here you need to talk about. Anything?
Did they find the information that I asked you at the last meeting?
Yeah, I emailed you. No?
Did you?
I think that was I did get copied on that. Yeah, so anything you see here will be coming up under consent agenda at the next board meeting. So certainly we can remove things for individual consideration and stuff if information creeps up. However, the intent is to do our homework and get these things addressed prior to the next time we meet. So is there any other comments or questions or concerns that any board member has now that the rest of the board needs to hear?
Kelly, do you know when you sent that?
October 16th.
I don't delete anything. So.
I'll forward it to you. It's right there.
It's got to be in here.
I did have one concern on 3231. That policy, specifically sections E and F.
I've got to find it here. Okay.
And just my concern is that the language is broad, and the interpretation of adverse or harmful effects or disrupting harmony. I just have concern there that could be construed in many different ways.
So you're talking more than what they're asking here to revise?
And the reason it's very vague is legally, then the specifics can fall under that very broad sense. That's the way much of the legal terms are created, like disorderly conduct. You don't say specifically what that is. You keep it broad so that whatever the situation is, it will be able to fall under there depending on the specifics of that situation. So that's how the attorneys write it, so that it allows the district to do the investigation and determine, based on the specifics of whatever that situation might be, it may or may not fall under that. So it is a legal way of providing entities an opportunity to determine, based on the specifics of a situation, whether or not it fits. So it's very similar to disorderly conduct or things like that.
No, I understand that. It's that sections A and B are relatively a little, well, I'll say they're a little bit more specific, but then you get to E and F and it's a lot broader.
So if I understand this right, so this is the Neola, what Neola, so we're adjusting our policy to what a current Neola policy is, right?
Correct.
And our attorneys are, I guess, I mean, we could have our attorney just take a shot at this and just see, or have we had that?
Well, the attorneys are the ones that write it for districts, and so there is an attorney. There are attorneys behind this writing.
For the Neola, right?
Correct. If you'd like us to go to our...
Well, we could just have our attorney just look at it, right, and just see,
Absolutely.
just to see what the issue, because these policies are sort of regional and national, so districts kind of, it's a commonality, right? But we could certainly have our attorney weigh in on it and explain.
Julie, did you have something?
Yes, I'm not sure if this helps or not, but the policy itself is being revised, but under our active administrative guidelines, so the guidelines that help us to determine whether the policy is being enforced, so 3231A, which is an administrative guideline, actually is called participation in political activity and gives some very specific examples of how that type of behavior that falls under that policy could be an impact too. I don't know if I can show you where.
So where is that, Julie? Is that, so are you citing a code of conduct or on?
If you go under policies,
Right.
and then click on active,
Mm-hmm.
and then on the left side, there's going to be a drop down for policies, click on the drop down for administrative guidelines.
Yep.
And then under the 3000s, the 3231A. So that would be a guideline that helps us enforce the policy, and I don't know if that provides maybe some clarification. And maybe not. They do go hand in hand.
I guess outside of that, if you have something specific that you are asking to be changed to, we could entertain that. We can look and see what our attorneys have to say. Outside of that, was there something you were looking to have a change to, or it's just not?
It just, to me, appeared very broad.
Okay.
Raise a flag, and that's it.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm proposing anything.
Okay.
But I don't know if it may be worth having the attorney say, yeah, this, a second opinion saying, yeah, this is okay, this is fine. It raised a flag.
Right. We can just have our attorney look at it.
And then Kelly, when we were talking about 7440.03, the small unmanned aircrafts, I know I mentioned that it said in here, anytime by an individual who is not authorized to do so by the superintendent, and then you said, or whoever is seen as. It doesn't state that though.
Right.
So does that need to be added?
It doesn't, but, I mean, if you would like it added, we can certainly add it.
Because then it feels like you're not following.
Where are you here?
So it's under the small unmanned aircraft systems or
Wait,
drones.
can you go back and cite the policy?
It's 7440.03.
Okay, can we finish up with 3231?
Oh, I thought.
No, and then, so then for 3231, we'll just get the attorney a pin, right?
Sure.
And we're good, and then Joseph will just get that out, and then if there's anything that we need to formulate or you need to pull this, we could just do it before, and then this will be on the consent agenda the following board meeting. Okay. Now,
Sorry, I
Tracy-
thought it was just done because she said she was going to.
yeah, so you had what, I'm sorry, what policy?
The small unmanned aircraft systems or drones.
Oh, okay,
policy.
got it.
I just don't think, I don't think Kelly's going to be available for every single.
Yeah, and if you
Yeah,
notice in most, in many of the policies, it'll say superintendent, but it means superintendent or designee.
Do we have that stated somewhere?
Kelly, that's in the bylaws.
Yeah.
Yep, it's in the
I'm looking
definitions.
for in the bylaws.
It's
Sometimes-
under definitions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Under superintendent, if the superintendent's capitalized, it refers to any person who is designated on behalf of the superintendent.
All right. It's just as long as it's noted somewhere that that's what that means, because if you took it literally, it doesn't.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It is,
So we're good with that?
Yeah, if it's
Okay.
stated in the bylaw, yeah.
Okay.
We said it.
So we have 30, so just information on 3231. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on the Neola policies as presented? Okay, this will be a motion to pass it. However, the final passage will be the next time we meet under consent. Hearing no other comments or discussion, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And these can be on consent for the following board meeting. Thank you, everyone. Moving on. Number 9, discussion items. Standing item now, correct?
Correct.
Got it. Item 10, information follow-up. Financials, you've got the on-site clinic information, the personal information memo. Any comments, questions, or concerns on either of those three? Any crop up, email staff, please. We have no communications and miscellaneous business. We will not be going into closed session. And at this time, a motion to adjourn is in order. Mr. Boschert. All those in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.